choices and decisions. What I know is that we come to this world and we are, fairly free and autonomous. That's what humans, do, and that's what we're striving for, is to be free and to make autonomous decisions about our own lives. But if you're anything like me, you've made choices and decisions along the way that have led you to feel like, trapped. You found yourself at a dead end, saying to yourself, oh my God, how the hell did I get here? So today is an opportunity for you to start thinking differently. So what I want you to do is, just like me, you're going to draw a line in the sand. I drew my line in the sand about 10 years ago. I've drawn it again and again since, actually, to be honest. But what I want you to do is, from now on, you're going to make every choice and every decision through conscious awareness. It is the benefit of personal development, is to get to know yourself, because when you know yourself, then you're going to make the choices and decisions that are going to mean that you're leading the life of your dreams, doing the things that you want to do. Unfortunately, what happens in our lives is that, we make these choices and decisions usually without any conscious awareness, and we don't realize the impact that they're going to have, ongoing, that there's going to be impacts down the line. So, things like, we buy a house, we're so excited to buy a house, and then we realize that we're stuck with this really big debt hanging over the top of us. And once we've got that debt, we have to do certain things. We have to work in certain jobs. We have to earn a certain amount of money. We kind of, trap ourselves in these situations that might not be something that we really want to do. And it's only with hindsight we can look back and go, oh my God, why did I do that? Why did I make that decision? So what I want you to do is to start becoming conscious about the choices and decisions you make. Because what I know is, if you want to live this one extraordinary life, you have to make the choices and the decisions that are going to lead you towards the life of your big dreams, reaching your goals. You have to set your goals, but not only do you have to set your goals, you've actually got to do the actions to get you closer to whatever that is. I don't want you or anyone to, get to their, 5 years down the track and then to look back and to go, what did I do with those last 5 years? I didn't do any of the things that I said I was going to do. And that is so common for so many people. So today you get to make the choices and decisions differently. You get to think about, what kind of a future do you want to have? What is your vision of the future? And what are you going to do? What choices and decisions are you going to make differently to start taking you there? And you also get to reflect upon the life that you've had so far. Of course, whatever choices and decisions we've made, no matter where we are today, no matter what you're doing when you're sitting here listening to this podcast, it's got to you to a point. Now, it might not have been the best choices and decisions that you could have ever made. And that's okay. What we do is we look at the gifts and the opportunities out of those things. For me, I married, when I was 34, and I was in a marriage that was probably not the right fit for me. Great man, beautiful husband, beautiful, father, thank goodness. But we were traveling down a road where we were both stuck in this thing, and neither of us could live the life that we were authentically here to live, because we couldn't even decide where we wanted to live. He wanted to live on acreage. I wanted to live near the beach. Just that. Somebody had to compromise and give up an essential part of ourselves. If we had realized that, if we'd have had some conversations, some open, honest, clear conversations about what we both wanted out of life, we would have realized very early on that we were making the wrong decision and the wrong choice, and we would have done things differently. In hindsight, we wouldn't have our children. So that, of course, is the benefit, or that is the gift that has come out of that. But what I want you to do, like me, is to make better choices. When I started realizing, that I wasn't living the life that I wanted to lead, then I needed to start doing things differently. One thing I know is we have to do those things, because if we don't do those things, we're going to end up still with a song inside us. And there's a really, sad story. My father passed away a few years ago, and he was a German man who'd moved to Australia in his early 20s. He loved Australian rainbow fish. And so I don't know how that came about, but anyway, he came to Australia and he was determined that he was going to, improve his photography so he could start going and taking those photos of those fish and all the Australian wildlife that he loved. And he spent a lot of his life going out, into the bush and doing that photography, doing wildlife photography of Australian animals, which was great. But, as he got older, he had commitments, he had to earn an income. There's all those, same things like most people have. But what happened was he got to his, the later parts of his life, and he suddenly had some free time in retirement to start writing the books that he wanted to write. He had this, amazing encyclopedic knowledge that, is just not out there and not available. So he started putting it into his, into the books. And he was writing, he was on this mission, he was writing these books. And then just at the very beginning of COVID, he ended up having a stroke. And when he had that stroke, it was tragic, because he was a man who was on a mission. He had a plan for this, life of his that he had. And suddenly something happened to him that he had no control over, and he lost the ability to finish his work. And he died with the song, still unsung. And I have a little quote, because this is, something I think we should all be thinking about, and it was really, on the day that he died, on the morning of, when he was still, present in the bed, and we were all visiting him, in the respite centre or the care, the hospital place. My sister and I said to him, "Don't worry, Dad, we're going to try and get this book, written for you, and we'll try and get it finished for you." And, he couldn't do much. Half of his face was paralysed, but he had the tears rolling down his face. And it was just a real tragedy. Like, it makes me feel teary now, because this is exactly what it was. And I'll just read you the quote. "The song I came to sing remains unsung to this day. I have spent my days in stringing and unstringing my instrument. The time has not come true. The words have not rightly been set. Only there is the agony of wishing in my heart." Now, it's by an Indian guru whose name I can't pronounce, so I'll put it in the show notes. But, for me, choices and decisions, you need to start making plans, because if you don't make plans and if you don't take the action to do something differently every day, this is when we die with the song inside of us. So if you know that you have a purpose here, if you know that you've got a mission on this life, and you aren't trying and you aren't striving for that mission on a daily basis, and you aren't taking steps to get closer to the life of your big dreams, whatever it might be, you only have to do little things each day. But if you aren't doing that, if you're putting yourself aside because you're caring for the children, or caring for your husband, or caring for elderly people, family, and you're not doing something, at least some small little thing every single day towards your own dreams and goals, that's going to be a tragedy when you get to the other end and there's been no time, or you haven't put the time in there for you. So what I want you to do is to start thinking about those things. Start thinking about the choices and decisions that you're making. Now, we all know that we've been stuck. A lot of us have made these choices and decisions that have kind of trapped us, that have kind of caught us. So, for many of us, it's that, we get married, we do the thing. We think that there's all these, things we have to do. We have to, finish school. We have to go to uni. We have to, get married. Then we have to wait a certain amount of years. Then we have to have our first child. And then, once we've had the first child, we have a second child. And then, we get a job, and we stick in the job for, however many years, X amount of years, because we've invested time in our studies. We've invested, years of our life into businesses, or into, jobs that we really don't love that much anymore, but we have to stay there because now we've got this really big mortgage hanging over our head. We've got bills, we've got children in private schools, we've got, and life is only getting more expensive, and we feel stuck and we feel trapped. And I have to wonder, and from my own perspective, I have to wonder, is this kind of, terrible, situation that we've got in the world where a huge percentage of people are on some kind of medication for anxiety or depression? I have to wonder whether the main reason or the big driver behind that is because people feel trapped and they're not living the life that they're supposed to be living. They're not free and autonomous because of the pressures that they've got sitting upon their shoulders. And rather than doing something differently and changing and maybe selling and, reducing the size of your house, or reducing the size of your mortgage, or moving to a cheaper place to live, or, whatever it might be, rather than doing that, or leaving a marriage because we can't, because we're so financially bound up with our partners, that, if we don't start to do things and make different choices, then we are just following these, pathways. Then we're going to look back and we're going to reflect and feel a little bit like we've wasted some of our time here on this earth. So what I want you to do is to make sure that you start from now on. We can't change the past, but what we can do is we can start thinking about the choices and decisions that we're going to make going forward. And so we need to get clarity. One of the things I have learned is that to trust my gut, number one, to trust my gut, that, you know, when I'm making a decision, if I listen to my gut, when I think about the past and I think about all the decisions that I've made along the way, if I had listened to my body, if I had paid attention to the unrest that was inside my body, in my heart or in my gut, I would have made a different decision. If my body was telling me, we need to pay attention to your body knows. So that's number one thing, that we need to pay attention to the body. But the other thing is to make sure that we're having the conversations, the difficult conversations, and not just assuming that, you know, I would have conversations with my ex-husband about traveling or about our future, and I would just assume that he was on the pathway with me. What was really happening was that I was sharing my goals and dreams, but he wasn't giving me, you know, his goals and dreams back. He wasn't sharing his with me. So because he wasn't doing that, I was just assuming that he was on the same pathway with me. What I know is now we have to have the conversation, and we have to get, you know, the person to share their, you know, if you're in a partnership, or if you're at in a business, or if you're in a workplace, we have to know what the other people are truly deeply thinking, because we make our decisions sometimes based upon what we assume other people, you know, that they're traveling with us, and sometimes they're not. So the only thing that we can do is to be in charge of our own decisions. We have to take responsibility for our own decisions and the choices we make. But if we get clarity, then we know that we're moving in the right direction. I think that is, you know, one of the key things. Self-awareness is the key behind that. You know, being able to know yourself really well, so that you know what your hopes and dreams are for this life, so that when you're faced with that decision, if you're dating somebody and that person says things to you that aren't in alignment with where you want to go in your life, no matter how much you like them or love them, perhaps that's not the right decision to make. You need to make sure that, you know, the interactions that you're having with other people are in alignment with you, so that your decisions going forward, especially with partners and relationships or businesses, that you are moving in the same direction. If you're aligned with other people, then they're great decisions. If you're not aligned, you're going to find yourself in crisis or in pain. So, you know, let's think about that. One of the things that I have learned to do is to sleep on it. So many years ago, when I worked in a Steiner or a Waldorf kindergarten, one of the things that we were compelled to do as teachers, as part of our personal development and spiritual development, was that if we were faced with any challenge, any problem, any situation that required an answer from us, that before we made the answer, or before we decided on something, you know, without, or just flippantly, what we were compelled to do is to go home and to sleep on that for 3 days, 3 days and 3 nights, to sleep on it for 3 nights, so that you would let it go, you would give it to your subconscious, and you would let the answers come. Now, we did this also in the daytime in meditation, but this was something where you would literally sleep on it, where you would take that idea, you didn't make any decisions, you just put things on pause. Now, I know that 3 days is a really reasonable amount of time to pause. No one is going to get upset with us if we ask for 3 days, you know, to think about things or to just sit and ponder. So the 3 days was amazing. I don't know why it was 3 days, but the 3 days does give you clarity. There is something about holding something, not trying to nut it out in your brain, but just sitting with it, going to bed, and then suddenly waking up, and just like meditation, getting these like drops of gold that would come to me, you know, and give you the answers, you know, basically tell you, yes, it was a good decision going forward, or perhaps give you some questions that you needed to ask to clarify some things before going forward, so that you could make a, you know, decision out of, you know, complete awareness. So I will, you know, I give that to you as a bit of a tool that, you know, if you're going to make choices and decisions, to do that as well, to actually sit and to just pause your life for 3 days, and to just wait and see what happens. No decision should ever be made in haste. That is the one thing I know. No big decision or any small decision. Now, we need to talk about those decisions and choices too, because every little thing, you know, like I always say, my newsletter is all about one little thing. What one little thing can you do today that's going to make a difference going forward? Now, the reason I talk about one little thing is that we can all do one little thing. I can do something differently today that over time is going to compound and have an ongoing or a larger effect. It's like the butterfly effect. One little, you know, butterfly wing over here can completely change the weather in another part of the world. So it's exactly the same with our choices. One little decision and choice that I make today can have really big impacts going forward. Now, a great example of that is thinking about, you know, eating well. So I know that today I could eat a chocolate bar. You know, I love, oh my gosh, there's these amazing Milo and white chocolate bars out at the moment, and I love them. So I know, you know, the other day I had a family block. I was having one of those days of the month, and I was like, oh my God, where I'm absolutely compelled to eat chocolate. There's no, you know, denying the craving. I've got to have it. And so I went and bought myself, and they were on special, $2.75. I didn't buy the single bar because that was $2.20. I bought the big bar for $2.75. And I knew bringing that home that was going to last probably half an hour, and it was all going to be in my belly because I love chocolate. So I brought it home, I ate the chocolate, and so be it. But I know in the past that I have had, because I do have a real craving for chocolate. It's one of the only things that I really, you know, that I can't control. Many years ago, I was running a business, and the business was, you know, really, really stressful. And I was having to do so many hours. I was working 10, 12-hour days. And to work till 11, 12 o'clock at night, I was then sitting with those chocolate bars. Now, what do you think happened? I started to eat them every day. Now, it didn't matter that I was eating salad for lunch and salad for dinner or vegetables for dinner. The fact was I was eating these big blocks of chocolate every single day. Now, over time, there was an effect. Over time, I started to put on weight. But the thing was, I didn't even realize I was putting on the weight. I was still wearing the same clothes. I was still wearing my size 10 shorts. Obviously, they were stretching with me. They were denim shorts. But I actually had no awareness of putting on, you know, kilos. I think I put on, over probably a period of 2 years or 2 or 3 years, I would have put on about 9 or 10 kilos, which for a small, I'm only 5'3", you know, that's a lot of weight for a small frame to carry. And so I put on this weight with no realization that I had done so, because my choices had been was to eat a family block of chocolate day after day after day after day after day. And so there were impacts. Not only that, I was having, you know, skin breakouts. There was lots of, you know, consequences to that as well. I was just feeling really sluggish. I wasn't doing a lot of exercise either because there was no time. I had, you know, a little baby at the time plus a 4-year-old. It was a really hectic time. And so I managed to put on, you know, this weight, and just to feel yuck, to be honest. Just I didn't feel good. So we know that that's what's happened. I could eat a, you know, one family block today, and as long as I ate healthy food for the next few days, it's not going to make any impact. But if I do something today and I continue that behavior again and again and again, over time, it is going to have an impact, and it will make an effect, and it will show up in your body as an effect. Same thing with exercise. I can choose not to go for a run or a dance. I do a dance in the morning. I'll talk to you about that because that's a really cool, fun thing to do. And it is the thing that I love most in my day. And I will talk about that in a future podcast, because it's, you know, again, one of the practices I do every day. But, you know, I do that because I want to. But if I decided that I was going to stop, if I, you know, just have one day where I think, no, I'm not going to go and do some, you know, sweaty exercise, then that's okay. One day is not going to make a difference. If I decided tomorrow that I'm not going to do that, probably still would be okay. Maybe even for a week, maybe even for 2. But after that, if I'm not moving my body, there's going to be some effects. There will either be things like, you know, my body starts to get stiff. It starts to get a bit arthritic. It starts to get a bit sclerotic. It kind of means the same thing. Basically, you know, your body starts to stiffen up, and you no longer have kind of movement of the joints or the, you know, the ligaments anymore. And suddenly I end up, you know, I have pain because I'm not, you know, moving. I'm not keeping everything lubricated. And then, you know, there's probably going to be some other consequences as well down the track. But this is where we need to make these choices and decisions, and to be really careful about that. The same thing for goals. If I don't take action today, if I don't do something towards my goals, in 5 years' time, there will be no movement or no change. And I'll be looking back going, what happened to those 5 years? What happened to that time? Where did it go? And why did I waste it? So for this One Extraordinary Life, what I want you to do is to make sure that from today, you're going to draw a line in the sand, and you're going to start thinking about the choices and decisions that you're going to make going forward, big and little. The conversations that you're going to have with people, you know, the difficult conversations you're going to have with people. If you're holding on to something and you're not being vocal about it, and you're not coming to that, you know, you're not having that and opening up that discussion, and you're holding on to something, that for me is worrying, because, you know, that does lead to that stress, and that leads to, you know, who knows, health issues down the track as well. But, you know, we have to make those decisions to be brave, to be bold, to try new things, to step out and have new adventures, to book that flight, to enroll in that course, whatever it might be, to turn up and do that study, to do the hard things, you know, because sometimes it's the hard things, to, you know, whatever it might be that you're going to do, to go and lift those weights, you know, that, oh, that feels really uncomfortable. And, you know, it's really challenging to go in the gym when there's lots of people watching you and lots of really fit people and you're not the fit person. You know, it's really challenging to do that. It's really hard to start. But once you start, you get momentum. And so the momentum keeps you going. So choices and decisions, it is a huge thing. It is what determines the quality of your life. It is what determines what happens in your life. It determines everything. So I want you to think about those going forward. And that is going to be the task today, to start becoming aware of your choices and decisions that you're making and to start making better ones. See you soon.